All right, guys, welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you are new and it is your first time here. Appreciate you guys joining me today and waiting patiently for the intro to finish up. I hope everybody is doing well today. Hope you're feeling good, or at least decent, right? Can't feel good every day, but still hope. So we have quite a bit to go over and talk about today. We have a lot of different topics. We're talking about a lot of different games, and I guess I could do a brief rundown. We did discuss that yesterday while we're on the stream. We talked about that at length. It was a lengthy topic that we discussed. So, I mean, obviously, I want you to stay here. As of right now, it's just a rumor. There's no confirmation. There's no confirmation. It's a rumor. Seems like it might be true. Yeah, it seems like it might be true. But no, it hasn't like officially been announced or anything like that. So we'll continue to follow that and see what's going on. Give Xbox fans Spider-Man 2. Why not? Sure, Sony's like, whoa, hold on now. Give them Spider-Man 2. They should give them Spider-Man 2 when Spider-Man 3 comes out. You know? I don't know. But we're talking about a lot of different topics. No cat, no boss. So I have another chair next to me here. I don't think it's on camera. For some reason, boss has been sleeping on that. He's been sleeping on this chair rather than the cat tower. Leia's been sleeping in the cat tower, but she's not here either. I don't know where she got off to. But no, we do have boss in here with us. We're talking about Stellar Blade. We're talking about Black Myth WuKong. We're talking about Mafia, the Old Country. We're talking about The Witcher 4. We're talking a little bit about Elden Ring. We have a bunch of different games that we're discussing today. So buckle up. I'm not sure how long the stream's going to be, though, because even though we have a lot to talk about, it is a Monday, you know? And Mondays are usually, since I stream on Sundays, there's usually zero news on Saturday or Sunday. And then Monday, there's also usually no news for like the first half of the day because everybody's just getting their work week started. So we'll see how long the stream ends up being. But yeah, these are some of the games we're going to be talking about today. I think we will kick it off talking about Stellar Blade. There is a new update that was announced, and there's a PlayStation blog post detailing this update. Before we do that, though, I want to thank everybody for joining me today and tuning in. You guys know the drill. There are a couple of ways you can support the channel directly. The simplest way is just hitting that like button. But if you want to help, keep the content flowing here and support me directly as a content creator and support the community, there are basically four ways you can do that. Number one, become a channel member. Number two, gift channel memberships. Number three, drop a super chat. Number four, there is a direct donation link at the top of the chat. So those are four ways in which you can help support the channel directly. And you guys make it possible for me to do this. So a big thank you to everybody who contributes. But I do want to dive into this Stellar Blade update. Over on the PlayStation blog, they say Stellar Blade's holiday-themed event brings new costumes, mini-games, and more on December 17th, so that's tomorrow. They say experience the magic of the holidays of Stellar Blade. Zion, adorned with warm, festive lights, is ready to welcome you with the spirit of hope and humanity. Join us for a special event designed to bring joy and comfort to your everyday life. A Zion filled with seasonal romance awaits you on December 17th. A colorful Christmas tree brightens Zion, transforming the once cold city square into a cozy, festive space with warm lights and decorations. The last gulp, where Zion's citizens gather after peace is restored, is also decorated for the holidays. So they do show a couple of images of that. In the camp, the seasonal BGM, Dawn Winter, and Take Me Away create a relaxing atmosphere. These romantic tunes will enhance your holiday relaxation by melting away battle tension. They say a new minigame has arrived in Zion, offering a break from survival struggles. Enjoy the gameplay and earn rewards upon completion. So they don't actually tell you what this is, but I'm looking at the image and it looks like you are shooting reefs that have presents that they drop. Um, Continues by saying the Santa dress for Eve is designed as an adorable and festive appearance. The I'm No Santa costume for Adam has a humorous twist. Complete the look with the Santa girl hairstyle and personalize it with accessories such as snow crystal glasses, wreath earrings. What did I say? I said a wreath, and sleigh ear cuffs. So they say the newly added Rudolph Pack cosmetic for the drone is an endearing item, reimagining Rudolph leading Santa's sleigh. With a red nose and cute horns, this drone is sure to brighten up your holiday. They say the on/off feature has been newly added for the seasonal events and near Automata DLC content. You can now enjoy the game whenever and however you want. And they finally say here, create unforgettable memories with these gifts prepared in Stellar Blade this cold winter. The development team put an extra touch to this update to deliver a joyful holiday to all. May the streets of Zion that were once cold and empty be filled with the wonders of the season. We strive to bring joy to your life. Have a warm and happy holiday with Stellar Blade. So really, really nice write up there from the developers of Stellar Blade. Nothing too crazy with this update, but still something nice that you're doing. A little holiday theme, a new dress for Eve mini game, and decorating Zion. Pretty cool. I'm kind of curious, how many of you are still playing Stellar Blade? I haven't played Stellar Blade since earlier this year in April and May. Uh, that was pretty much my time with the game. I haven't really gone back to it. I don't know that I'm going to go back to this Christmas update, but I do appreciate that they're doing it. It is pretty cool. It's nice to see developers continuing to support their single player games. Illegal Monkey, you're saying you plan to get a physical copy of Black Myth Wukong, but after hearing the poor sport comments from Game Science's CEO, I think I'll keep my money. Plenty of other games to play from less entitled crybabies. Wow. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. What a weird situation. What a strange situation that has presented itself with Black Myth Wukong. I also realize my hat's a little crooked there. Definitely a weird situation going on there. But did I get the platinum for Stellar Blade? I did not get the platinum for Stellar Blade. No. For some reason, it was just a game I didn't necessarily feel compelled to platinum. I did enjoy my time with it, though. Sometimes I just play these games where, like, once I complete them, I'm like, I look over the trophy list and I'm like, I could go for this. I could get this, but I feel pretty satisfied. I feel pretty satisfied. So it kind of varies from game to game. You think I need to go back and platinum it? Maybe one day. I'm going to say I'm probably not going to. Saying, bro, you did PUBG. I know, but that's a different, two completely different experiences. The reason why I went for the platinum in PUBG was because I kept playing PUBG over and over and over again. And it kept, after playing it for so many hours, it's like, dude, you got like 98% of the trophies. You may as well go for those last two, right? It was basically one of those situations. With a game like Stellar Blade, I would have definitely had to go out of my way to get that platinum. And I just decided, you know what? Maybe if I come back to it, but I'm completely satisfied with my playthrough. Yeah, B Flesher's right. B Flesher's right. Brandon, you're saying you haven't played Stellar Blade in a while, but you'll be back for the Christmas update. That's cool, man. Yeah, I think it's nice that they're doing this. I like to see developers that kind of get into the festive spirit and they add these updates to their games, and they're usually not major, but it's still just a nice little touch, certainly. But moving on from Stellar Blade, let's talk about the situation with Black Myth Wukong. Josh, you're saying yes, Square Enix was snubbed, and I don't hear them crying about it. Really pathetic by Game Science CEO. Yeah, let's go over that situation. So I did cover this in my video, but we'll go over it here once again. Black Myth WuKong deserved Astrobot's Game of the Year award, says Game Science CEO. While most punters seemed surprisingly pleased with Jeff Keighley's latest installment of the Game Awards, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's robbery aside, it appears at least one executive took home sour grapes in place of a hoped-for statue. Game Science CEO and Black Myth WuKong producer Feng Ji went on an impressive extended scree on the Chinese social media platform Weibo, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, declaring, quote, "I came to the Game Awards for nothing," end quote, as well as taking umbrage with the allegedly wishy-washy criteria of how the Game of the Year is selected. The exact tone of the 7-paragraph rant can be difficult to parse at times, occasionally invoking poetry and literature in the current economic state of China, as well as being a machine translated and edited for clarity thanks to the gamer. Still, some quotes are quite stark, and we can't imagine the general intent is lost. It's worth remembering that Black Myth WuKong was nominated for 5 awards and ultimately won Player's Choice and Best Action Game, which is more recognition than most games ever receive. G expressed confusion at the Game Awards' selection process for the Game of the Year category and regrets not having a chance to speak on stage, claiming to have written his victory speech 2 years ago. Invoking the power of the Player's Choice Award, G said, quote, "I have also seen strong dissatisfaction, unwillingness, and unhappiness in the comments of many players, most of them expressed in a humorous and deconstructive way, which is hilarious," end quote. G says that Wukong's undeniable commercial success was all part of the plan. The inevitable result of the studio's culture, quote, "Some people say that a team that has achieved such results with its first standalone game is a small probability, an accident, and it is difficult to copy in the future. I want to say that this is not an accident. It is the inevitable result of a collision between Chinese culture, Chinese talents, China's business environment, China's game industry, and the vast number of players worldwide. It's not a bet, it's a ride," end quote. Former IGN and Sony Santa Monica writer Alana Pierce alleges that at least one game science developer could be seen weeping from her seat in the front row of the Game Awards audience. The act is fine in and of itself. We're allowed as many crying breaks as we like, and Jeff Keighley himself was clearly overcome with masculine emotion on the main stage while introducing an Okami sequel trailer. Still, it suggests that perhaps the developers had their expectations set a hair too high, and it detracts from the spirit of good sportsmanship and camaraderie these events are supposed to pursue. I'm also going to play, it's only a minute long, the short clip from Alana Pierce where she spoke on this. Let me make sure it is coming through.
And I was in the front row this year. It was my first time being in the front row. I was like, wow, thanks, Jeff. Great seats. But being in the front row means that you can see all of the actually important people. So like next to me was the whole Sony team. Frankly, that's probably why they put me there, was because when they gave me the seat, I was with Sony. So I was with the Sony publishing team. Behind me was Joseph Faris. Just behind him was Sam Lake, both of whom I know and am very fond of. They're both really great dudes. But I could see all of the nominees and awards winners, and the Black Myth WuKong team, I don't know which person on the team, was crying when Astrobot got Game of the Year. Because you could see him just looking down the line, which is the first time I've ever seen anything like that, because generally everyone is like, Game Awards doesn't matter that much. But yeah, the WuKong team were crying when they did not win, which was definitely unusual. Clearly meant a lot to them. They did an amazing thing. But I did find that surprising. Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Did it look like celebratory crying? No, 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 no. They were upset. Definitely upset that they didn't win. Which is also fair. But it was still just surprising, is really all I'm saying.
So that's what Alana Pierce had to say as somebody who was at the Game Awards and was seated very close to them and watching what was going on. Cypherpunk with 2 super chats says CCP will likely make the BMW devs disappear. To be fair, awards should all be fan voted. Unfortunately, this is probably why they were all crying. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Cypherpunk, you're saying cultural thing in China, these guys may get fired. Well, I do think that this is quite a strange situation when you consider how successful Black Myth Wukong is, right? I feel like when I look at Black Myth Wukong, I'm like, this game achieved what like 99% of games couldn't even, like, they have no prayer of ever even getting close to achieving. And I can understand the passion behind wanting your game that you worked on for years and you truly believed in and you put everything in and you truly believe is special. I can completely understand the passion that goes behind that. There's no second place in China. Well, that it literally reminds me of Talladega Nights, Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last. And it's like the worst mentality in the world. I'm all for competition, but there's like a limit to that where once you kind of cross that line, it's like, this is just ridiculous now. And I think that this situation is quite ridiculous where it's like, the thing that gets me with this is not the developers crying or anything like that. I think that's fine. Like, if you're overcome with emotion in a negative way because you really wanted to win that award and you didn't, and it's just coming out, whatever. I don't have any problem with that. It is what it is. It's you know, that's different for everybody. But the thing I do have a problem with here is the rant, the tirade that the CEO of this studio went on, because it just seems like, well, to put it bluntly, it's really difficult for me not to lose respect for what I'm reading, or for the studio based off of what I'm reading, where it's like, wait, you had you're publicly letting everybody know that you had your speech ready to go 2 years ago. Your game of the year speech was ready to go 2 years ago. There's just something so wrong with that, in my opinion. Like, it's fine. Why would you say that out loud? Um, you know, Basically saying we came to the Game Awards for nothing after winning an award, winning 2 awards, by the way. They won the fan voted award, which to a lot of people is the more important one, and they won Best Action Game. So that's where things to me start to veer in the territory of ridiculousness, where it's like, dude, you did win. You won 2 awards at the biggest game award show of the year. And one of them, again, was fan voted, which means people absolutely love your game. Your game sold over 20 million copies. I understand that the end goal here is, but we want to have it all. But like, I can't get behind this. I can't get behind this. I can't condone this behavior over an award, a Game of the Year award at the Game Awards. I think the more mature, more, you know, just respectable thing to do in this case would be to acknowledge your successes and acknowledge the fact that you've done something that even Astrobot did. Astrobot didn't sell 20 million units. Astrobot wasn't fan voted as Game of the Year. Acknowledge those things. Lean on those things. Celebrate those things. Don't start to throw a fit because you couldn't talk about, you couldn't read your speech that for some reason you wrote 2 years ago because you were just that confident. That to me just comes off as blatant arrogance. And it's just very disheartening. I feel like when you see something like this happen, it just paints a not so pretty picture. It starts to, I think, take away from what the game achieved. And to me, that's the saddest part, where it's like, listen, man, listen, by throwing this fit and kind of behaving in this way, it just seems to detract from what people should be focused on, which is the incredible success. And I understand that, some people are saying it's a cultural thing. It's how it is maybe in China where it's like, yeah, if there is no second place, but I just think I think that's an unfortunate culture if that's true, because it's like that's just not how things are. There is second place, there is third place, there's fourth, fifth, and sixth. And if somebody gets second place, if somebody gets third place, there's nothing wrong with celebrating that. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that that's not easy to do either. So it's an extremely toxic mentality and just totally unnecessary when you consider at the end of the day, let's face it, at the end of the day, the Game Awards are not taken that seriously. People do tune in, a lot of people tune in, and it is a big show, but people do not, from what I can tell, most people are not like referring to the Video Game Awards to determine what they should or shouldn't play or how excited they should be for games that are out there right now or released this year. They should take lessons from Hamaguchi. He was just grateful to be there. Yeah, and I loved seeing the speech from I get, what was he, the composer for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Very humble, and it made you smile because you could tell that it was exactly that. They were just very grateful to even be there and to even win anything and to be able to, the only thing I can say I can understand from the CEO of Game Science, this is the only thing I can understand, is if he really wanted to speak to the audience and be on stage. I get that. I get that, you know, but still, man, I'm sure there were a lot of people there. You know who else I think? I mean, you want to talk about snubs? You know who I think didn't get enough recognition was Konami. Silent Hill 2 was nominated multiple times, didn't win anything, and even the actor, I forget his name. Somebody can remind me what his name is, but the actor who played James Sunderland, I thought his performance was incredible, and he didn't win anything. But it's not a big deal. Cypherpunk, thank you for the super chat, buddy. You're saying during his watch along, Asmund said to his 120,000 viewers, along with Excusey, saying the same thing that Sony had voters on the panel, and that's why Astro won. LOL. I don't understand. What's weird is I've seen people kind of saying this, right? Like making it seem like, of course, Sony was going to win. Of course, Astrobot was going to win. And I'm like, the thing that kind of bothers me a little bit about this is like, I think people are kind of forgetting that Astrobot is the highest rated game of the year. Luke Roberts, thank you, Katie. Yeah, I forgot his name. I think people are kind of overlooking the fact or downplaying the fact that Astrobot is the highest rated game of the year. I'm not saying that in a like pompous way. Like, that's right, Sony had the highest rated game of the year. Like, no, it's just literally that's the fact, right? And a lot of times, the highest rated game of the year ends up to go on winning game of the year. It's not, what I'm saying? Like, the logic is basically 2 plus 2, usually in this case, equals 4, right? It's kind of that simple. So that's where I feel like when the people who are acting very surprised or shocked or even just kind of like, oh yeah, of course Astrobot won because it's Sony, I feel like it's doing a disservice to what Astrobot actually achieved, which is, dude, listen, I say this as somebody who doesn't even usually play these type of games. The game is incredible. It is. I fully understand that not everybody who plays Astrobot is going to walk away saying this is game of the year. I totally get that. And even I was not expecting it to take the ultimate game of the year at this year's Game Awards. But it's also not shocking. It's not like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like, no, I can believe it. The game was very, very good. It was excellent. And Team Asobi, I think, I'm not saying any of the other teams didn't put their heart and soul into their games. They absolutely did. But that's the nature of the beast, man. You get these development teams where they are all putting blood, sweat, and tears, their heart and soul into this game that they're making. And obviously, when you see those games come together and clash, it's just one of these things where it's like I said during the night of the Game Awards. I firmly believe that every game that was there deserved to be, you know, like was worthy of game of the year. The only one, as I said, that's, maybe a little bit different is the Shadow of the Erd Tree because it's a DLC. But I'll put it to you this way, based off of what I can tell, if Shadow of the Erd Tree was not a DLC and it was sold as a full $40, $50 game, I think people would be like, yeah, I feel like it's probably a game of the year contender. But I don't know, man. I just think it's not a good look for any developer at any of these prominent studios to be behaving this way, where it's like we should be celebrating each other. We should be, you know, kind of, no, I don't want to say necessarily happy that you lost. That obviously not, but just be able to lose gracefully and understand that it's okay. It's okay. You still won. Even though you didn't take everything, you still won. And Cypherpunk, you're saying joint highest, I think Metaphor had 94. Yeah, Metaphor was up there too. Metaphor was up there too. And, you know, as my YouTube studio crashes once again, one of the things I will say about this year's Game Awards that I really appreciated, and I'm not sure how many of you guys appreciated this as well, is it really seemed like almost everybody, except for Konami and Silent Hill 2. But outside of Silent Hill 2, the you know, they were there was a lot of awards going around to different teams and different games, and it almost kind of felt like everybody's getting a little something here, except Silent Hill 2. But I thought that was kind of cool to see where, I mean, Astrobot, I think, did take the most awards, but even still, I mean, Black Myth won some, Metaphor won something, Final Fantasy won something, Helldivers won something, even, Hellblade 2, I think, won twice. Hellblade 2 won a big one as well. And even as somebody who did play Hellblade, right? Like I played that game and I definitely felt like it was lacking with gameplay and pacing. But one of the awards they won, it was for the Melina, I think her name is. Uh Jurgens, I think that's her name. She's the actress who plays the, Senua. Yeah, absolutely deserved, man. Like that was one of the high points of that game where her performance was once again very, very, very good. And it's just cool to see, as somebody who doesn't really care that much about these awards, and I really didn't go in, you know, that interested in who's going to win what. It was still just kind of nice to see that almost everybody, got something. Um, I mean, let's be real. I feel like the only developer here that probably should feel a little bit scorned is Bloober Team. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, very strange situation. Venino with a super chat says, play all Switch Marios and you will understand, MBG. What will I understand, Venino? I must know. What will I understand? Oh, do you mean, well, I can only try to assume to know what you're saying here. Do you mean if I were to play all of the Marios that all of the Mario games that released on Switch, I would feel like Astrobot is basically just doing what those games did? Is that what you mean? Unico, you're saying Hellblade 1 was cartoonist with combat, just left, right swings, but Hellblade 2 had actually MMA and sword fighting. I did think the combat that was there, Unico, was pretty good. It was a little bit repetitive, but I did enjoy it. I think the only real problem with Hellblade 2, to be honest, because it had a lot going for it, was the pacing. I think the pacing was a little bit off. or maybe even very off in certain areas. And I think if they could have improved that and, figured out a way to add more gameplay to break it up at certain sections without, while still making it make sense. But I enjoyed it overall. It wasn't a bad game. I mean, I've seen people be really harsh on it. I'm like, I don't think it's bad, you know? Yeah, I saw that in Novin's there. That was pretty funny. You're saying MBG, there's nothing new, just pure nostalgia. Astro is 10 out of 10 in my opinion, but nothing special. But the thing is, Venino, I feel like we've reached a point where what you just said, maybe minus the nostalgia. I'll admit that. Minus the nostalgia, I feel like what you're saying could be applicable to almost all the games that were there, if not all of them. You know? Like we've reached a point where what exactly I mean, when you think about like Black Myth Wukong, like what you just said, I think could be applied to that. Um, Black Myth Wukong is not it's not even just Black Myth Wukong, but Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Um, these are games that they're not necessarily like none of them are doing anything truly like brand new special or like genuinely like wow you know that is the most unique thing we've ever seen in a video game. Like they're all kind of either built off of something that came before or inspired by something that came before. And I think that that's okay. I do. I think that that's okay. I don't think that that should, that the only qualifier for what should take game of the year is, but is it the most original game and the most unique game? Because if that was the case, an indie game should end up winning game of the year. And you could definitely find indie games that are doing things that nobody else has done or thought of. But I do get what you're saying. Yeah, I can agree with that, Josh. I can agree with that. You're right. I really can't think of any other game that is doing combat wise what Final Fantasy VII or remake or rebirth are doing. I can agree with that. And again, that's exactly why some people are like, man, how did it not win Game of the Year? I was ready to see Final Fantasy win Game of the Year. I was like, yeah, I definitely think there's a good chance that'll be the one. I thought it was going to be between FF7 Rebirth and Black Myth Wukong when it was all said and done. And maybe, I don't know, maybe Shadow of the Erdtree. I feel like if Shadow of the Erdtree won, people would have been very upset. Some people. Chris Brown with a super chat says, sadly, FSR 3 shits on PSSR and Outlaws. Night and day difference. Yeah, well, what's becoming clear about PSSR, Chris, is that it is the first iteration. I think that as well as some other people, we may have gotten ahead of ourselves in assuming what PSSR do is going to do right out of the gate. But just like every other AI upscaler, FSR, DLSS, the first iteration is usually the roughest. The first iteration is usually the weakest, and it's necessary. They have to go through these growing pains in order to improve. It is an AI after all, and it has to learn and get better. And I would say PSSR is showing a lot of promise, but in some games, yeah, it's very clear that like this is not the solution for this particular game. Something like FSR 3 may make a lot more sense. I noticed that some Unreal Engine 5 games are opting to use the I don't know what it's called. TSR, I think is what it's called. That's the one that's integrated directly into Unreal Engine 5, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Chris, I think that developers are going to have to be a little bit more conscientious about which upscaler they want to have automatically enabled for their game. Give us choices. Instant Messenger Sama, you're saying, do you guys think that the Halo remake is going to arrive on PlayStation? Once divided players would be able to finally join forces together. My answer to that, Instant Messenger Sama, is yes, I do. I think the next Halo is going to be a reimagining or maybe just a remake slash reimagining or reboot or all three of Halo. And it's going to basically be a reboot of the first game or reimagining of it. And it's going to be an Unreal Engine 5. I think it's going to ship day one on PlayStation 5. I think this is going to be very much intentional because I think Microsoft has every intention of rejuvenating Halo and kind of restarting. And I think that by them putting it on PlayStation alongside Xbox and pretty much putting it everywhere, who knows? Maybe it could even make its way to Switch too by the time it's ready to come out. I think this is going to be in an effort to again grow the IP and get Halo back uh, to a much better place. Um, so yes, I do believe Halo will. I think it's many many years away. I think the next Halo is at least 5 6 years away. So we're talking like being like a third of the way through the next gen potentially before it arrives. But I think by that time, things are going to look very different when it comes to these platforms and again, exclusivity. I also want to say that I think the rumor we heard, the reason why I'm saying this as well is we did hear a rumor earlier this year that this is exactly what Microsoft is apparently planning to do. They're planning on rebooting Halo, making essentially a remake of Halo Combat Evolved in Unreal Engine 5 and releasing it day one on PS5 as well. Maybe a decision on that hasn't been made yet because, again, it's years away. But by the time we get there, I think that's what we're going to see. And Cypherpunk with another super chat. Thank you so much, buddy. You're saying if Astro wasn't a PlayStation game, would you play it? Same gameplay, but say switch out the PlayStation nostalgia stuff for like Ubisoft characters. LOL. Be honest. I can honestly tell you if it was, I mean, like the example you're using, Cypherpunk, if it was Ubisoft characters, no. No, I wouldn't have played it. Um, it would have piqued my interest in the fact that, like, a different publisher doing something like this where they're like trying to celebrate their history is in and of itself interesting to me. Like if we did get a Konami game or well, I don't know if Konami even has enough IP to do that, but just like you're saying, maybe like Ubisoft, or like we want to celebrate all of our IP. It would be interesting to me, and like that's different and not really something I would have expected to see outside of a platform holder. But I can tell you confidently, Cypherpunk, I would not have played it. Unless people were like, bro, this is a 10 out of 10 game. Like, you need to play it. If people were celebrating it for like the gameplay, the way that they're celebrating Astrobot, I would maybe consider it. If it, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have to go buy hardware for it. It's available on the console that I play on. I would at least consider it, but chances are I probably wouldn't. So I have no problem admitting that there is a bias at play here for me. Like the fact that Astrobot is a PlayStation developed title interests me automatically. I don't think I've ever hid this from my channel. I think everybody knows this, that I do have a bias towards PlayStation Studios. I try not to let it get in the way that often, but I have to be honest in saying that when I see the PlayStation Studios logo appear, it changes my expectation and my perspective of whatever's about to be shown. And the reason for this is because of the history that I have with PlayStation Studios, where like 8 to 9 times out of 10, not every time, certainly not every time, but 8 to 9 times out of 10, when I boot up a game that features that logo, it's doing something really, really, really good that I end up thoroughly enjoying. So when I see that, I'm basically more willing to give something a chance than I otherwise would be. Now, I'm trying to get better at this where I am trying to approach gaming more holistically, where I'm trying not to let things like that necessarily sway whether I want to try a game or not. For example, like yesterday when we were talking about some of the games that were revealed at the Game Awards that I'm very excited for, these are not games that are being made by PlayStation Studios, but these are games being made by other publishers and other studios, but yet my excitement for them is just as high. What I will say is that PlayStation Studios developed titles, when they are when they're covering different genres, I am I am more willing to try out a game in a genre that I otherwise would have avoided if it's coming from PlayStation Studios. Doesn't mean I'll like it, doesn't mean I'll love it, but what I can say, Cypherpunk, is that after experiencing Astrobot, because it's really the first time in probably I don't even know how long, man. I'm trying to think realistically of the last platformer that I played. I mean, maybe it was like a long time ago, like a SpongeBob game or something. I'm talking like a long time ago. Um, this is like realistically, I think the first time I truly got back into a 3D platformer. And because of this, when the Switch 2 comes out, that's a console, like I said, I'm planning on investing in and picking up. I'm going to be automatically more receptive now to, you know what, maybe I will go play this Mario game that everybody raved about and got 10 out of 10s and everybody's saying it's amazing, or the next one, right? I am now more receptive to that, and the gateway truthfully was Astrobot. So, yeah, I can be honest with you, absolutely. Cypherpunk can tell you that no, if there was like a Ubisoft platformer celebrating Ubisoft properties, and it was like $60, I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to pass on that. But there's also the idea that Astrobot did it kind of brings up that question, right? Where it's like, would we be viewing Astrobot the same way with the amount of reverence that we are if it wasn't celebrating 30 years of PlayStation? If it wasn't that just like hard hitting, I mean, just straight up punching you in the gut violently. I love the idea of describing Astrobot as violent, just violently punching you in the gut with that nostalgia mercilessly, you know, beating you to a pulp with nostalgia. Would would we still be would we still be as you know, as would we still be hyping it up as much? I think that's a tough question to answer, and I think we will get that answer at some point because I think one day we will get an Astrobot game that is not going to lean so heavily into um the nostalgic factor. And I think that will determine whether or not, like, man, how much heavy lifting did the nostalgia actually do? What I can say is that from a gameplay perspective, remove the PlayStation nostalgia. From a gameplay perspective, it was a very, very, very good, well playing game. That even as somebody, again, who doesn't really play platformers, I enjoyed it thoroughly, especially the challenge levels. Again, I was kind of surprised how difficult some of them actually got. But I think because of that, it can definitely stand on its own 2 feet, you know? I don't know, well, Astrobot doesn't have feet, I don't know what you would call the bottom of his legs, but, you get what I'm saying. But, yeah, the Game Awards ultimately, I think they were fine. I think they were fine. Nubbies, yeah. There you go. Illegal Monkey, you got it. Pegs. Astrobot is for children. I'd say Astrobot is for everybody, really. I mean, I think, yeah, it definitely automatically appeals to children for sure. My son loves Astrobot, but I think it's for everybody. I think literally anybody can enjoy Astrobot. I mean, if you're not into those type of games, you're not into them, aesthetically speaking. But did Santa get him his Astrobot controller? Yes. Yes, he did. Planet Schlorpian says, I love Astrobot and I'm pushing 30. Oh, yeah, that's true, MRPD. You're saying, was really hoping for a Metal Gear Solid Delta release date since today marks the 20th anniversary. Yeah, I'm still waiting, man. I'm still waiting on that Metal Gear Solid Delta release date. It's got to be coming like in the first half of 2025, right? I feel like they've shown so much of it. I would find it hard to believe that they needed like almost another year of development time. I think the game has to be almost done. I mean, yeah, there's no rush, of course, but they were marketing it very heavily, which is that's what's interesting to me is they were marketing this game very heavily all throughout this year. So it really does feel like we should have a release date. I think we're going to get the release date in early 2025. I think honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we get the release date in January, and then it's going to be ready like 3 months later, something like that. Because if I recall correctly, we got the release date for Silent Hill 2 just a couple months, I think, before it came out. Devil Shooter, you're saying I don't care for Astrobot, but I love that it won because of the salt. Yeah, I don't know why people get so upset about it, man. I mean, they're going to get upset though, you know. Chris Brown, you're saying January state of play. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking. I think there might be a January state of play on the docket, just like there was last year. It would make sense. It's worth noting we did get that rumor like a month ago that apparently Sony or Insomniac was prepping to show Wolverine, and it still hasn't shown up. So it's like, am I gonna get the Helldivers controller? I have to think about it. I gotta be careful, man. I'm like I have too many controllers. I have too many dual senses. Cypherpunk, you're saying you'd love Mario then if you like the gameplay. It's harder too. Yeah, I mean it's one of these things, man, where I am prepared to give Nintendo a real chance again. Not that I say that as if like there's some particular reason I haven't played Nintendo. It's just like I said previously, I fell out of Nintendo when I was like 10 or 11 years old. And I just never really looked back. I never, I played the Wii, of course. Who didn't play the Wii? I played a little bit of the Wii. Um, and that may have been, well, when I was 10 or 11, yeah, I think that was dude, that was around the time that I think the Wii was coming out. And I just think that's where Nintendo completely lost me, where I'm just like, yeah, no. I mean, I played it, of course, but it didn't feel for me, on what Nintendo was doing. And they obviously had the handhelds, but I think the last handheld I had from Nintendo before I moved on was what was the last Game Boy that came out? The Game Boy Advance SP? Is that the one? Was that the last Game Boy? Because I think that was the last handheld from Nintendo that I ever had. And then after that, I think I got a PSP. And after I got the PSP, I played that for a while and I did like it. The PSP was kind of weird for me though, because I felt like I was trying to convince myself I was really into it. But then I just started to, I think, realize that I'm not really into handheld gaming as much anymore. Um, and so I ended up like dropping the PSP, and then I just started PSP was awesome. But I just remember like I just ultimately, and this it's kind of funny when looking back on it because it explains why I play games the way I do today, where like I just want to play my PS2. Like that's all, like that's what it always boiled down to, where it's like the PSP is awesome. I liked the you know, Game Boy Advance SP, but I just always was like, I just can't wait to get home. And I think the reason why handhelds were so prevalent in my life at that time is I remember specifically one of those summers, I went to like a summer camp or whatever, and a big portion of that day was to just kind of do whatever we wanted. And we were allowed to bring handheld consoles if we had them. So I would just sit there all day playing Game Boy Advance SP. I think I remember playing Pokemon Sapphire and Ruby at the time. Um, and yeah, I remember playing Madden on the PSP. Trying to remember what other PSP games I ended up having. I remember having some kind of like dungeon crawler game that I just didn't quite understand. Like I bought it, I asked my mom to buy it for me because I thought the box art looked awesome, and I ended up playing it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. um, which was often the case for me with games growing up. Josh Z, thank you so much for the super chat, buddy. You're saying MBGI was racking my brains, and I can't think of any other developer that has never made a bad game besides Naughty Dog. That should count for more to gamers. The hate is crazy. I hope they have to eat crow. Bro, I got to tell you something, Josh. Like, look, I promise I'm not going on a rant. I'm not diving deep into this topic or conversation only because I don't want, if there's one thing I'm trying to get better at with my streams is I don't want to become overly redundant like I have been, where I just repeat the same thing over and over and over every single stream. But the actress, I forget her name, or maybe is it Toddy Gabrielle, I think her name is. I just want to say, somebody had told me yesterday that she was the same actress who played the main villain in the Uncharted movie that came out 2 years ago. And I watched that movie. And out of curiosity, I went to go check to see if she looked very different. Like, how different did she look in that movie playing that villain versus how she looks in this game as the main protagonist? Not much difference, like almost at all. Like, she wasn't completely like shaved head or bald, but she had like almost. She had like I don't even know what you'd call it. Very, very short hair, I guess. And it was blonde, or at least it had like blonde highlights. Dude, nobody had a problem. I'm not saying it's like apples to apples here, but I'm just saying, like, I didn't hear a negative thing, not a single negative thing about this woman, this actress playing the villain in this movie and her appearance, right? And it's just weird to me that like we have the same actress involved with another Naughty Dog project looking basically the same and having almost the same attitude, by the way. In the movie, I'm pretty sure she had like this kind of badass demeanor. And I just thought that that was kind of funny because I'm like, damn, this isn't even like that new. Like, it's not like shocking. You know what I mean? Like, we literally saw this actress in a Naughty Dog project before in a similar type of role. And I guess it's just what I'm trying to say is like, I don't recall there being any backlash or people like criticizing the direction that this Uncharted movie went in by having this actress and playing that type of role. So I'm not saying it's an apples to apples comparison. I'm not saying it's the same thing. I'm just saying I guess I found it kind of funny where it's like, you know, it's just interesting to me that, you know, we can watch an Uncharted movie and, you know, nobody really bats an eye at this new character in the movie. But we get a new Naughty Dog game that features the same actress playing a relatively similar role, just the good guy this time, and everybody loses their mind. And I don't know. Again, I'm not saying it's the same thing. I guess what I'm ultimately trying to say is I expected, considering the heavy emphasis on her appearance, because she's an actress that's been in other stuff and she's been involved with Naughty Dog projects. I expected when I went to go look up, like, oh yeah, she was in that Uncharted movie. What did she look up for? Or what did I looked up? Like, what did she look like? Why are people, you know, did she look completely different? And like, no, she looked very similar. Not much difference. And I'm like, oh. Well, anyway, yeah, I totally get what you're saying, Josh. You know, I will no longer be entertaining those conversations because I mean, those conversations are overly redundant where like my my stance on Intergalactic is exactly what you're saying. At the end of the day, Naughty Dog has not made a bad video game. Like they just, and I'm speaking from a gameplay perspective. You know, that's like the number one thing we should judge when we talk about video games. From a gameplay perspective, Naughty Dog has never made a bad video game. If they have, I'm not aware of it. So you know, a sentiment that I've been seeing from quite a few people, which is one that I think is worth highlighting. I've actually seen quite a few people that had this feeling of like, I'm not really digging the way this game looks. And it's not necessarily getting me excited. However, I'm pretty sure it's going to end up being a great game either way, or it's probably going to have some of the best gameplay ever. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds totally fair. Like that sounds like an absolutely fair assessment based off of what we've seen. So it's unfortunate how toxic the conversation has become, Josh. I think that to me is, you know, like I saw people were criticizing Naughty Dog because Naughty Dog privated the comments. The PlayStation YouTube channel did not turn off the comments, at least the last time I checked. But the official Naughty Dog channel did turn off their comments. And I just think it's kind of funny to me that people act like, wow, why would you do that? How could you do that? Like, gee, I don't know. Have you read some of the comments? Have you have you seen what some people are saying? It's just you know, people they don't seem to understand or even care that it's like, listen, man, if people were being reasonable in the comment section, the comments wouldn't be turned off. But people are not being reasonable. Now, I'm not saying everybody's being unreasonable. Unfortunately, when situations like this arise and the comments get turned off, anybody who was being reasonable also cannot leave a comment, which is unfortunate. But there was just too much toxicity, man. It's overwhelming. Yeah, I take offense to that, Gaming Survivor. Not what you're saying, but you're saying baldness shouldn't be so controversial. And BG is just like the rest of us. He's human. Yeah, I'm like seeing all these people hating on the fact that this female's bald, and I'm like, got something against bald people? Huh? Huh? What's wrong? What's the problem with a bald woman? I don't see any problem. Bald is beautiful. Cypherpunk, just to acknowledge your super chat, you're saying so you're against free speech. I'm not against free speech, no, but I'm also in favor of like, well, for example, if it's Naughty Dog's YouTube channel and it's their comment section, they're free to do what they want. They're free to run it how they like. I'm not saying that I think they should keep comments off on all of their videos, but I'm just saying it's if it's like, listen, we're getting way too many volatile, toxic comments that are just crossing lines. So we're going to turn off our comments. It's like, okay, that's not me saying everything should be censored and there should be no free speech. No, I'm just simply saying that I believe Naughty Dog is free to do what they like and what they deem necessary on their channel. Just like that's how I feel here on my channel, you know, where, you know, if people were to start saying things that I deem like totally like, wow, that's you're being like completely rude or unreasonable and belligerent or just toxic as hell. Like I don't need, you know, I'm not worried about your freedom of speech in my chat. You get what I'm saying? Freedom of speech, generally speaking, there needs to be places, obviously, like there needs to be an environment where people can go talk about what they want with other people, you know? And I think the good news is here, Cypherpunk, that exists. So, for example, all the people who, um, you know, who feel like they're being censored by Naughty Dog and they can't leave a comment saying what they want. The good news is you can go literally anywhere else, and trust me, anybody who has something to say, there's a place to say it. That place is called Twitter. No, But I mean, Twitter, Reddit, other comment sections. Go to PlayStation's YouTube comment section. It's not turned off. You could go say it there. You get what I'm saying? It's just one of these things where I'm not going to be mad at. And I guess this kind of goes for like other content creators too, where it's like, yeah, it's your shit. Run it how you like. I don't have to agree with it. Like I don't walk into a restaurant and tell the manager of that restaurant how they should run their shit. If they're doing something that I think is like, that makes no sense and I think that's a stupid idea, I'm free to leave and go to the other restaurant. You know what I'm saying? So that's hopefully that kind of clears that up because I am not against free speech. If anything, I'm in favor of people, who are creating their own environments on the internet, deciding how they, the type of conversations that they would like to facilitate. Not in the name of creating an echo chamber, but just in the name of making it comfortable for them, right? It shouldn't have to be uncomfortable. We also have Instant Messenger Sama saying the fact that she plays Jade in the next Mortal Kombat movie is wild to me. Why is that wild to you? I didn't even know that. I actually didn't even know they were making another Mortal Kombat movie. I didn't see the last one. Was it good? People have been complaining about Mortal Kombat lately, too. I haven't been keeping up with Mortal Kombat. I did play Mortal Kombat 1 when it came out, and I really did enjoy it. And I only needed one more trophy to get the platinum, but I ended up not getting it. The last Mortal Kombat movie was amazing. Why do you think that's wild though? Like I'm somewhat familiar. I'm familiar with Jade's character to a degree. Not extensively, but I know her well enough, I guess. People didn't like the last Mortal Kombat game. It's interesting because I don't know, I didn't have a problem with it. I will say from the story of the last Mortal Kombat game was a little bit it was a little bit all over the place. It was a little bit all over the place. They gender swapped in the DLC. Oh, okay. Yeah, I could see why some people are going to be upset about that. Isn't Jade Asian? You know what? Let me double check. I might be confusing her with another character. Um, no. I don't wait, I'm not sure. Jade. I mean, I guess she could be Asian. I'm not I'll be honest, I thought Jade was black. So I don't know if I'm getting my characters confused or what. Saying even if she was Asian, the actor is half Asian. She's both. She's mixed. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. Jade looked white to you. MRPD says, "Who cares?" Yeah, I don't even know how we got on this conversation. Damn you, Instant Messenger Sama. But no, I did. First off, I didn't even know they were making another Mortal Kombat movie, and I didn't know that she was. She's also the actress that's going to be playing Jade. Wasn't aware of that. I don't know. I feel like Mortal Kombat has kind of lost me to a degree. Not because I think anything they're doing is like, I'm not like, oh my God, it's bad. I feel like they haven't really done anything really interesting with the story and the characters in quite some time. Um, they're with Mortal Kombat 1, they went in the direction of like, we're doing the multiverse thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, of course you are. And they kind of rebooted everything. And I'm like, well, all right, I guess. But It feels like they've kind of hit a bit of a wall, at least in my opinion. It feels like they hit a bit of a wall where it's like, look, we don't really know what else to do except to just kind of change up the characters and their roles and the expectations. Robbie Gold, you're saying, yes, you're projecting an argument onto me I never made. I said MBG isn't the arbiter of what's reasonable and is advocating for censorship because it's obvious only one option is allowed here. That's so. Listen, I want to make it clear, Robbie, because I know that these things are going to pop up from time to time. I'm not saying, and I'm not trying to convey to you or anybody else that we can only think one way and we can only say things one way. I'm not trying to do that. I think that's actually the opposite of constructive or interesting. However, I do need it to be understood, and I think some people do not fully understand what I'm about to say. I have been subjected to an overwhelming amount of not constructive conversations. Not I've been subjected to having to see way too much bullshit, nonsense, toxic rhetoric that frankly, I think anybody who's exposed to it enough, I think eventually gets tired of it to a point where like they you know what they realize is they wake up one day and they realize I don't have to deal with this. That's the realization. And I think some people they get in their own heads a little bit where it's like, uh-oh, I shouldn't do this because free speech. Like, dude, who cares? Worry about you. You know, like I'm not like if I choose to if somebody comes in and says something that makes me feel like, you know what? I feel like you're being toxic and I think this is bullshit. I think what you're saying is bullshit. I understand why that person might be upset and be like, well, that doesn't seem fair. But you know what? Just in the same way that we are born into this life and life is not fair. Sometimes things are just going to be the way a person wants them to be as they're running their shit, you know? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as I'm not trying to impose it on anybody. That's the point. Like, I'm not trying to tell you that you shouldn't ever say that. No, you say what you want. Be who you want, say what you want. But if I don't want you saying it in my chat, I don't want you saying it in my chat. You go say it anywhere else. You know what I mean? I think there is a difference there. And I just want to make sure that difference is understood. Where there is a difference between somebody saying nobody should ever say this thing versus I just don't want to be around people saying that thing. That's all. That's all I'm trying to say. Component, you're saying sounds like you're drawing a line in the sand here. Oh yeah, I am. I am drawing a line in the sand. I have drawn the line in the sand. And it's unfortunately it's because I've allowed myself, like I said, I feel like I've allowed myself to just be on play the middle lane for too long to where I realize that, man, there is a downside to playing the middle lane and trying to just be quote unquote neutral with a lot of these things. And that is, you're going to be hearing screams and shouts from both sides, and you're going to encounter people constantly fighting in the middle. Just to realize that, like, Jesus, this is not what I wanted, you know? So rather than pick a side, I don't know, man. I waved the white flag and flew into the sun. But yeah, like there's no dispute, I would say. There's no dispute. I think that's too strong of a term. I just want to make it clear that I do encourage people to speak their mind in my chat, but I also just want people to understand that it is my chat. That's all. And I don't look at I'm not, it's not like if I see something that somebody says that I don't like, I'm like, well, I'm deleting you. Like I just don't like what you said, so I'm blocking you and removing you. No, I don't do that. I don't do that. But when I see people that are clearly causing trouble or, you know, just seemingly constantly argumentative, and that's another thing as well. I don't like seeing constant arguments where it's like, listen, there's just no need for the back and forth. There, like I said, there are places all over the internet where that's all it is every day. Reddit, Twitter, you just go argue all day if you want. I don't want that to be my chat. And that's my choice. So Ray says the old saying, speak your mind, but be careful what you say. Yeah, I mean, freedom of speech doesn't mean from consequences, right? I think that's something that sometimes we have to learn the hard way. Cypherpunk, by the way, I forgot to read this super chat. You're saying Druckmann loves bald women with athletic builds. He sure does. He sure does. Bald women with athletic builds. I'll be honest, I'm at a point where I want the next Naughty Dog game to feature literally a roided out chick. Like, I mean, full blown bodybuilder, roided out, juiced chick with a deep voice. Do it. Okay, you're saying MBG, the channel is a business. Just like if you walk into a grocery store and start yelling crazy, the management will politely ask you to leave. It's how you provide for your family, and some forget that. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. I could, there are a lot of businesses that I think take advantage of the chaos and allow it to work for them. And I'm not even blaming them. If it works, it works. If it makes you money, it makes you money. But I've just determined that it makes me too miserable and unhappy to delve too deep into those conversations. And I will admit, like sometimes it does lead to more engagement, more viewership, you know? Um, People getting worked up over stuff. But I'm just like, when we're getting to a point where it's like, what? You're excited about The Witcher 4? How? Did you not see her face? And it's like, yeah, I'm going to go. All right. We are going to move on to other topics. I have one more question I want to ask. Before I do, B. Flesher, a member for 17 months, says, I will push back a bit about the whole gameplay over story thing. Most of the time, I agree, but certain devs like Naughty Dog value story more. And I do understand where you're coming from with that, B. Flesher, and I don't think you're wrong, right? Because you're pointing out something that I think has made itself known with Naughty Dog. In the last, I would say, couple of generations, which is, yes, the story in Uncharted, and especially the story in The Last of Us, absolutely, like this, they make it clear, like this is a very vital part of this game. You can't play a game like The Last of Us Part 2 or The Last of Us 1 and not care about the story. You just can't. You can't. You can. You can separate these things where this is the story and this is the gameplay. But they're too intertwined to be able to just pretend like one doesn't exist. Just like, in all video games, you can't just play a game for the story and not care about the gameplay. Like you have to care about the gameplay just at the base level of you need to play this game to progress the story, right? But I guess what I'm trying to say, or maybe just to make myself a little bit more clear, when it comes to Intergalactic, I I do feel this might be the first time we see Naughty Dog actually prioritize. Now, I want to say prioritize, maybe that's the wrong word, but they're going to try to push the gameplay side more than the story side. And that the story is going to be very important. And I think they made that clear with the first impression. But like, I think from this point forward, it's going to be more about the gameplay. And the gameplay might actually end up being the true standout of this game. And I hope it is, because the thing about the idea of the gameplay being the true standout is, if that's what everybody's focused on, I think, it's not that people won't care about the characters or the story, they absolutely will, but I think it just kind of recenters Naughty Dog as a video game studio of like, oh wait, yeah, that's right. They make video games that are really fun. You know what I'm saying? And I think that would be good for Naughty Dog right now. I do. And I think The Last of Us Part 3, because again, we do need to acknowledge The Last of Us Part 3 is still coming. It's still coming. That's going to continue that expectation from Naughty Dog, where it's like the fucking hard-hitting, just deep story that really has something it wants to say or wants to leave some kind of lasting impression. We're going to get that with The Last of Us Part 3 either way, So, Robbie Gold, you're saying stick to the facts. I never mentioned Naughty Dog. You continue to project arguments onto me I never made. I stated a fact, and the chat can't cope. Well, Robbie, can you tell me what it is you said that you think is causing people to project? Unless it was the first thing you said, or yeah, Devil Shooter. Just start over, or like what Devil Shooter's saying. Just start over and say it again, because like I said, I'm not trying to make people feel like they can't have opinions. You can have an opinion. You know what I want? You know what I want? I want people to be able to agree to disagree. That's what I want. That's what I want to facilitate in my chat. I know it's going to be hard, but I think we can do it. I want people to be able to agree to disagree, where when people start getting into arguments, the way it ends is it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to agree with what this person's saying and whatever, We're going to agree to disagree and we're going to move on. It's when people start getting too heated that I feel like that becomes unproductive. Yeah, no all-out brawls. That's what makes my streams, when I am streaming these events, that's what makes them so toxic. My chat turns into a brawl. It's like a bar where a brawl's breaking out, dude. And I'm like just over there in the corner like, oh, what happened, man? What happened? And that's what really, I think, kind of kicked this into gear. Fenrir, you're saying if you don't like this character, you are this list of ists and phobes is equally cringe and toxic. I do agree with that. I think this is where people need to be more intentional and mindful of, if you're going to use words like homophobic or racist or whatever, you need to make sure that that's really what it is. Because when you start throwing those words, those are some heavy words. Accusing somebody of being that is pretty heavy. I feel like you should only do that when it's truly like we've identified that's truly what it is, Because I do agree. I think some people do throw those terms around a bit too loosely, to where it's like, bro, somebody's like, if somebody says, I don't like that this character's bald, or I just don't like the way she looks, I don't think that, suddenly turn around, well, that's because you're sexist, or that's because you're racist. I don't think that's the appropriate response. I think the appropriate response, if you're going to engage, is why. And then based on what they say, you will be able to infer and figure out, deduce, what's actually behind the dislike. Robbie, you're saying, I never had an appointment. I just stated MBG isn't the arbiter of what's reasonable, and you were advocating for censorship. I appreciate the changing the discourse now, but chat projected the freedom of speech argument. I forgot to mute my phone there. Not appointment. Well, that's fine. I feel like maybe what some people are probably disagreeing with here, if I had to guess, Robbie, is they you know, maybe they disagree where I think some people do think I can be I wouldn't want to call it that, like an arbiter of what's reasonable, and that I was advocating for censorship. I think some people, you know, might disagree with that because I think there are people who feel the opposite of that. But that's where, listen, I want to make it clear, like that's fine. Like if that's a I I don't mind at all that that's your opinion of me, you know? Like that doesn't bother me because I think you're stating it very reasonably. I don't necessarily fully agree, right? But again, this is where it's perfectly fine, man. Like that's a reasonable opinion. That's a fine opinion. Like you're not trying, like I don't read that as you're trying to argue with me or anybody about it. And I would suggest that anybody who is taking that automatically and saying, well, you know, like basically trying to turn it into something more, I don't think that's necessary. I don't think it's necessary. Rich Rod, I got to read your Rich Rod. I'll read what you're saying. Now you're saying you all can't act like Druckmann isn't trying to anger people. Makes great games and story, but he's an agitator and does it purposely. Well, I have something I want to say to that Rich Rod. See, this is what always happens. I said I wasn't going to go on and on about it, and yet I'm going on and on about it. Hold on, guys. I will be right back. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Thank you for waiting patiently for me to come back. I jumped out the window. Yeah, I just dipped out of the conversation. I'm like, you know what? I'm out. I'm out. Um. So yeah, I didn't want. I don't want the conversation to be like completely taken over. You know, I saw somebody left a comment on one of my streams, and I guess they were like, I guess this is a culture war channel. And listen, I can't deny that the culture war conversation has seemingly taken over, and that's on me. You know, I'm the one who gets to choose what we talk about here on my channel, right? I do feel like it's one of those things again where you can't completely ignore what's going on. I think that you can't just like bury your head in the sand. I don't think that's good either, but it's definitely become too much. But there is yeah, to go take a couple shots. There is one thing I want to say. There's just one last thing I want to say before I do. Rich Rod, you're saying, Mr. Oh my God. Rich Rod, for the love of all that is holy. Mr. Yeastwood, don't ever disrespect MBG again. Me and Unico will rip and beat you so hard. You're what? Hold on. I so hard your mama will give us her money butterscotch. Wait, I was disrespected? Hold on. Rich Rod, Rich Rod, why was I disrespected? I'm just curious because I can never tell. Sometimes when I read something like that, it's like, is that just a generalized? Okay, you're saying I just was. That is all. Okay, all right. I'm just trying to get context, man. That's all. Because sometimes, Rich Rod, you come in here acting like you're ready to swing. Not at me, but damn MRPD. Um, all right, listen. There's something I want to ask. I look. I just I know that this is going to be a loaded question, and I know that this question in and of itself creates discourse. In fact, you know what? Maybe I'm not going to ask the question. I don't think I'm, because the more I'm thinking about it, I'm like, this is it's not going to facilitate a productive conversation. I don't think it will. But now I feel bad because everyone's gonna be like, "What's the question?" Oathbreaker knows. Oathbreaker's like, you probably shouldn't. You probably shouldn't ask the question. Well, look, it's not that serious at the end of the day. Maybe it is. I'm not sure. Now, all right, I'll ask the question. And after I ask this question and we discuss it for approximately 2 to 2.5 minutes, we will move on. So I was, I saw Stellar Blade, and I saw that, and we just discussed it. Stellar Blade got an update, and so much of the conversation, unfortunately, on the internet in 2024 and 2023, but especially this year, with a lot of new games that are announced, and especially Intergalactic or The Witcher 4, there is this conversation about ugly characters, specifically ugly female characters. And it has become inescapable. The reason I say this is because, dude, I have been trying with every fiber of my being to avoid Twitter at like all costs because I don't want to see anything. I just don't want to be there anymore. But in order for me to, you know, be as in touch as I feel I need to be with gaming news and what's going on, sometimes I end up there. So, like, for example, when I was hearing about the Stellar Blade update, I um I saw it was posted by the official PlayStation YouTube channel, and I went to go click on it because I wanted to save the one of the pictures to use in my thumbnail. And in clicking on it, it showed me the first three replies, which were in front of my face, and I couldn't avoid it. And the top reply was somebody, they said something like, "Reject modernity, embrace tradition," and it was a picture of the main character from Intergalactic, from Naughty Dog, next to a picture of Eve from Stellar Blade in a skimpy outfit. And it genuinely raised a thought in my mind, like a question that I don't think it's a crazy question. Maybe I think it depends on who you ask. Some people might think it's crazy, but I don't think it's crazy. So we see The Witcher 4. One of the arguments is, well, okay, they replaced Geralt. That's a problem. But on top of that, they made Ciri ugly. That's a problem. Intergalactic, bald female protagonist, ugly. And the list goes on of just, Western developers making women protagonists ugly. So my question, this is my question. What's wrong with that? That's my question. What's wrong if a character doesn't look attractive? And I'm curious, like, I don't expect everybody, obviously everybody's going to have an answer to that. Everybody's going to have a different answer. But the reason why I'm asking this question is because the way I see people reacting, it's such a visceral, intense reaction that it makes me feel like something must really be wrong. Something must really be wrong to get people this worked up over how these characters look. And it just made me realize that I think that's just the question that I feel the need to ask these people is what is what's the problem? I I'm so, like somebody I feel like an answer somebody might give is, well, there's not enough attractive females in games. I'm like, I don't know, man. Stellar Blade's out there. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth with Tifa. You got all these gotcha games with, I mean, goddamn, they're definitely not trying to hide it, you know? And there's plenty of others, I'm sure. Like they exist. I think that's like the thing is like, so that is an invalid argument in my opinion, where those games exist. Like what you want, what you're saying you need exists. The first descendant, yeah, the list goes on. Where are those games from the West? Okay, so then it becomes we are getting we are getting this. We are seeing this treatment specifically from the West. So I would think that the next thing that somebody might say is, well, it's because it's reflective of a political agenda that is being pushed. And that's where I feel like I'm going to need more explanation. I'm not saying I'm not open to it. I am open to hearing more. I want to know more. But I feel like, there's this kind of feeling in me that's like, I'm not so sure like whether this woman is super hot or attractive in this game. I'm not really sure how that is meant to make me feel a certain thing politically, you know? Because it really doesn't. I mean, I guess I'm just speaking for me. You're saying it's just fun having attractive characters. Well, I'm not against that either. To be clear, I'm not against attractive characters. So maybe it turns into like, well, the people who are making these characters not attractive are against attractive characters. We have a direct donation from Rich Rod. You're saying nothing is wrong with her being a bald chick. G.I. Jane could have gotten meat stick on cargo train with horse crap. It's because Druckmann is a troll. So, Rich Rod, so what you are saying is that you believe it's less to do with the look of the character or the character itself or herself in the game, and more to do with just people not liking Neil Druckmann, knowing that he created the character. So they're basically projecting their feelings they have of Neil Druckmann onto the new character and the new project that they're showing. I mean, I don't know, man. I do understand some of the reasons why people don't like Neil Druckmann, but I don't know that I could take it that far. People are just alert to this now and they want to call it out. Morgan Anstine, you're saying, I love Naughty Dog and I'm still going to play it, but they keep making characters look and act like someone I'd actively try and avoid in real life. It's not ugly per se, but more just a type of person. And I think that's fair. I would say that's a much more tangible reason as to why somebody would end up having a problem. Because even I said, like, look, we don't know. I don't know much about this new character. Um, and obviously, when we play games as protagonists, where we're going to be with them the entire game, the end goal is we want to like these characters. We want to connect with them in some way or feel something good for them. We don't want to not like them. We don't want to dislike them. So that I think is perfectly, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, Morgan, where if people were to say, I am I'm turned off by this game and this character because I'm afraid that it's going to be a poorly written character that I end up just kind of not standing. And like you're saying, kind of like somebody I would actually avoid in real life. Yeah, that is something that I would hope that doesn't happen, because if that's the case, then man, that is complete mission failure in terms of writing a compelling main protagonist, right? MBG can't work out why blue-haired Reddit types make awful games. No, I'm see that's see you're going, that's not conducive to the conversation. Blue-haired Reddit types. What does that mean? I need to know what that means in the context of The Witcher 4, of Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. I need to know what that means in that context. Because if what you're trying to describe are radical leftists, right? Like radical politically driven individuals that happen to work inside of these studios where their only goal is to insert their political beliefs aggressively into the product so it can get out there to more people. I do understand what you're talking about. That does exist. That also exists with people right now who are radically right and also fucking insane, where they can't seem to understand that a character not having a beautiful face, a perfectly symmetrical, beautiful face, um, should not really determine whether or not a game is good or bad, or whether or not you're willing to give it the time of day. Because if that's your only reason, then I think that it's very misguided. MRPD, you're saying I didn't find Ellie attractive in The Last of Us, but I still loved playing as her because she's badass and had an amazing character. Story that intrigued me. End of story. Characters do not necessarily need to be beautiful. Yeah, I mean, that's what's funny, dude, is like, it's so, I think that's a good point, MRPD. Like, I never looked at Ellie that way, speaking about like The Last of Us Part 2, as a grown adult, and they even have like some sexually charged scenes. I'm like, yeah, I'm not viewing it that way. And I never really like that. I don't know. That's just like not something I ever really thought of with Ellie. Like I never thought like, is she attractive or not? Illegal Monkey, thank you for the super chat, buddy. You're saying here protagonists should be attractive in shape. You're a unique, especially capable character. I don't want my Superman to be fat and loaded with stretch marks just because someone wants to feel included. I'm sorry. I'm just imagining that version of Superman. It's so funny because we're getting a new trailer for Superman this Thursday, or the first trailer for the new movie, and I'm just imagining that version of Superman coming out. Yeah, no, and I think there are limits, Illegal Monkey. I do. I think there are limits, and I think what you're kind of speaking to here is the extreme upper limit of like, all right, listen, I don't think anybody would be upset if Superman was a little bit husky, where it's like, listen, he's buff, but you know, maybe he's got that really small layer of kind of like body fat that makes him look more bulky rather than shredded. Because you're right. Like if we're talking about uniquely capable characters, there is an expectation, and that expectation is driven by, well, honestly, what we expect in real life. But I think it gets kind of crazy because it's like, I'm not saying I'm an advocate for this because I'm not. I think it would be ridiculous and nonsensical. But hopefully my point is made clear, or I could get the point across. You could make Superman fat, dumpy, and just totally like not the ideal physique. You could do that, and you know how you could get away with it? Because you could say Superman is an alien, not from this planet. So how things work here are not applicable to him. So in our reality, in grounded real life, somebody who is out of shape, somebody who is overweight, somebody who is not very coordinate, right? They're not going to be effective in combat at all. They're going to struggle in with anything physical, more so than the person who is not that and more fit. But you see, that's where I think it's just kind of funny, where it's like we are taking things, we are looking at, I guess what it boils down to is you can't really do that to Superman because, well, what do you, like, you have to ask yourself, at what point are you encouraging? And that's why I feel like that's where something like that resides in the upper extreme, where it's like, if you go out of your way to make a character obese and unfit and just totally antithetical to what you would expect for somebody who's out there running around, dodging, jumping around, doing, crazy physical stuff, it almost starts to make it seem like like you're almost practically advocating for obesity, and you're trying to create an illusion, not an illusion, a delusion, a diluted version of reality, right? Where it's like, I don't know. I guess it's such a dude. My mind starts to like tangle up with this because it's like, all right, the argument I'm trying to make right now, the argument I'm trying to make is that we need to be careful what we are encouraging, right? Like when we are allowing something to be the way it is, we're saying this is okay. This is totally fine. When we collectively allow that and we agree to it, we're saying it's okay. I'm saying we need to be careful with that because it's like, well, if we make Superman fat, we're basically trying to tell people that you can be fat and overweight and still expect to, be physically consequential, when it comes to anything that requires a certain level of fitness. And that's not true. That's a lie. That's not how that works. Right? But at the same time, I also think to myself, wait, hold on though. We play games like GTA where you can go on like killing sprees. And there have been people that have constantly made the argument that this is going to encourage people to become murderers. This is going to desensitize people and turn them into murderers. And we've always kind of advocated for well, no, just be a normal person. Like just be a sane person and understand you're playing a video game. It's not fucking real. So this is where I feel like we're almost entering territory where it's like, again, when I boil it down, what is the problem? Well, yeah, that's true, Wabudu. You're saying plenty of fat wrestlers are athletic as hell. Yeah, to be fair, yeah, there is a certain level of reality where, yeah, I've seen overweight people where it's like, holy shit, how are they doing that? Like, it's just a little bit surprising. Like, it kind of goes against what we traditionally think of as like, a bigger person actually like they're moving in a way where you're like, whoa. So I've experienced that firsthand myself as well. And maybe I don't know, maybe I got too tangled up in the whole Superman thing. But I guess illegal monkey, I do understand what you're saying. You're just basically speaking to there's a certain expectation. There's a certain expectation where if I'm playing as a protagonist, simply put, you're saying I expect them to look good and be effective, right? If this character is supposed to be a badass, well, they should have a physique to reflect that. Again, that's like I say more traditionalist thinking, just something that's kind of been implanted in our brains since forever, right? Um, I don't know. I guess I get hung up on this because again, man, no matter how much I try to avoid it, and believe me, I've been trying to avoid it because it triggers these long-winded conversations from me where I'm just trying to understand. And I fear that I'm just continually trying to reason with the unreasonable, but at the same time, the people that I keep seeing as unreasonable truly believe they are not. And that's what I get caught up in. And so I don't know. I was just really wondering like what the problem is, you know? Like if a developer's like, yeah, I didn't want to make yeah, we did want to make Siri look less attractive in The Witcher 4. We did that. I mean, I think it's a little strange. I'm not saying I don't think it's strange. I think it's strange. But if it's like, why? And here's something that I think I've heard that actually makes sense to me. Something I've been told is that the reason why they're doing this is because they're trying to make these characters look like average people, or in some cases it less than average, right? And I feel like the knee jerk reaction to that is that's weird, right? And I think that knee jerk reaction comes from the fact that like we of course we all walk around and we know like everybody looks different and most people are not blessed to look like supermodels or look super hot and attractive. Others are, you know? So the idea that like this character that is supposed to be like a symbol, right? And is supposed to be somebody that's like a character that's propped up, it does make logical sense that we would expect them to also look good, I guess, right? To a certain extent. So when people are kind of like going out of their way to point out like, look, it seems like they're going out of their way to make them look not good. What are they trying to say? It seems to me the message, and that's true, looks are subjective, I guess, right? I mean, unless we're dealing with very extreme cases, yeah, I'd say that's true. But I guess it's like ultimately the message that seems like, and maybe I'm interpreting this wrong. I could be interpreting it wrong. The message that seems to be they're trying to get across is that average to below average looking people can also be exceptional. That's all I got. That's all I got because I'm not sure what else. I just don't know what else is they're trying to convey here. What else are they trying to convey? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know. I feel like Stellar Blade is a game where they're giving me a really unbelievably sexualized character saying, "Hey, they can they can be exceptional." I don't know. Realistic graphics equals realistic people. saying how Siri still looks attractive. I mean, dude, The Witcher 4 is the one that gets me, man. I don't know. I've been seeing some weird shit coming out with that game where I'm like, what are people talking about, man? What are people talking about? I don't know. I do apologize. I did it again, man. I did it again. I didn't mean for it to devolve into this. You advocate for open discourse. You're saying Gaming Survivor advocates for censorship. MBG, this is the last time I'm talking about this. Saying Nathan Drake was replaced by Chloe, Joel was replaced with Ellie, Abby was crazy thick in The Last of Us Part 2. I don't know why that's thick with 2 C's. It made me laugh. Now we've got this protagonist in Intergalactic. Druckmann definitely has an agenda. I mean, he does, though. Like, of course he does. And look, at what point do we, if we acknowledge the agenda is Neil Druckmann wants strong female characters and leads. That's what he wants. That's what he wants, of all shapes and sizes. Straight, lesbian, buff, skinny, bald, long hair, short hair. That's what he wants. Why should I be mad about that? If the games they're making are good. I mean, again, with the exception of the story of The Last of Us 2, why should I be mad about that? If it's a good fucking game. I mean, look, I would be upset with. Listen, I'm telling you, guys, if the entirety of PlayStation Studios turns into every studio is following Neil's agenda, we're now, literally every studio, strong female lead. I will have a problem with that because that's like we've reached the extreme edge. We're on the extreme end, guys. We need to, I mean, come on. You know, like anybody should be able to see how that's kind of ridiculous. We're halfway there. Well, I mean, were we saying that at a time when it was like mostly guys, right? I don't think so. And that's why I'm saying, like, halfway, sure, whatever. Go crazy. Go crazy. Make what you want. But I don't know, man. Like, at the end of the day, because I need to get down to it. I need to get down to the fucking real shit here. This is why I can't move on from this conversation. I cannot move on from this conversation because I keep failing to get down to the bottom of it. At the end of the day, to all the people who were trying to convince me that there is a big problem right now. This is why when I see that Endymion dude, I fucking cringe into the next dimension. Because he's like one of the most prevalent people right now doing this shit. Where it's like they are screaming, or if not screaming, they are just every day, there's a major problem and you should have a problem with it too. I need to fucking know what that problem is. Because every time I listen to these people, they do not ever seem to convey what the fucking problem is. They're talking about race. They're talking about ethnicity. They're talking about sexuality. They're talking about people that are being hired at these companies that are fucking setting up programs to basically tell people like, hey, We need to do like race sensitivity training and shit. But it's all in the name of telling me why I need to be fucking unhappy with the end result and what's going on in gaming. And I can no longer enjoy my games. And I don't understand. What exactly am I supposed to be so afraid of? You think Smash JT explains the problem well? Maybe I'll check him out. I've heard of his name. I don't think I've looked into it too much. I mean, look, if people are telling me, look, you remember that situation with Concord when they had that professor person come in and they created a super toxic work environment? That's what we should be afraid of? Okay, I can get behind that. Like, yeah, that's pretty fucked up. We can't have shit like that happen because that's weird, bizarre behavior that leads to the demise of a fucking studio. I am in agreement with that. I feel like we've seen the extreme end. But I feel like what we're seeing now is like, so if Neil Druckmann wants to have another female character as a lead in his new game, that means we're looking at a Firewalk situation. This is clearly Concord 2. And that's where I fucking lose my shit because it's like, what? What? How? How? I don't know, man. I'm sorry. I'm always losing it over this. It's not because I expect. Listen, it's not because I expect everybody to be like, yeah, dude, this game's gonna be amazing, and everybody should be excited. I don't know, man. I just think it's fucking weird. Like that's the thing that I can't get away from. Is I just think people are being fucking weird about everything now. Like people are being super fucking weird, and they're trying to normalize it in the same way that it's fucking weird for a person to walk into a studio and be like, "You're gonna call me professor," even though I'm not a fucking professor, and you're gonna listen to what I tell you, and we're gonna have toxic positivity. In the same way that that's fucking weird, it's also weird when it's like, "Oh my god, this game." I'm fucking boycotting it because look at the character. She's a strong she's an ad female with an attitude and a buzz cut. What the fuck? That's weird too, bro. Like that's also weird. You see what I'm saying? Like it's just weirdness is happening. And I don't like it's making me I feel like it's I'm constantly getting gaslit because I feel like everybody's being weird, but it's like normal now. Weird is the new normal. It's just like how like what do you want to be weird about today? I don't know. Like do we have to be weird? It's like yeah, we do. Like but why? Cuz I make money off it. That's why. Ray, you're saying Naughty Dog's game looks good, should have a good story and Trent and Atticus creating a score. Come on. Even if it's The Last of Us in space, sign me up. I mean, I'm telling you, man, I want to see that gameplay. Naughty Dog, I think Naughty Dog's cooking with the gameplay, dude. I'm really curious, man. I think they teased it a little bit, but they barely showed anything. They barely showed anything. No, I did not. I saw the pictures of Kojima getting scanned, but I didn't see the memes. Were there memes made of it? That's funny. MBG just said it. Weird is the new normal. I know, Gaming Survivor, and that's where I continually fail. I constantly fail because I'm weak at the end of the day, man. Like I'm strong for a little bit, but I always succumb to it. You're absolutely right. The best way is to starve the conversation of oxygen. There was a 4chan leak of the plot / combat MBG. Not sure if it's worth looking at. I mean, 4chan is, um, I mean, what did it say? What's what's the story in Kombat going to be like? I don't know if I'm going to look it up. Yeah, 4chan is certainly something. I don't know, man. I just feel frustrated. I do. I feel frustrated because I feel like it when you look at the shit that people are arguing over, it is stuff that I think it does matter because it's shit that has probably that people have been dealing with for forever, you know? Where it's like I'm tired, man. Like I'm tired of people thinking that things can only be the way that they fucking want them to be. I'm like that's what I'm tired of. That's what I'm over. I know. I'm sorry, Shems. I know. I'm not saying that I'm contributing or I'm not saying that I'm being productive or proactive about it either because I don't think that any of my ranting or conversations about it are, you know, are changing, you know. I don't think it's necessarily changing things. Robbie Gold, you're saying you've received a lot of hate and derogatory name calling. So here I'd say it's quite a few people in chat, not including me. Can we go back to praising Astrobot? Yes. Astrobot supremacy. Souls-like gameplay has me worried now. I feel the opposite, dude. If they're going for Souls-like gameplay, I am fucking on board. Good point, Tarnish the Witch. Well, I'll be honest with you, man. You know, I saw that person. They were like saying that, you know, in the chat, you know, this is like questions about censorship and whatnot. And look, I'm just gonna be clear cut about it, clear cut and dry. Um, I'm probably still going on and on because it's still fresh. You know, we're just fresh off the Game Awards, and with it, a whole new fucking can of worms that have been opened, multiple cans of worms. So to put a bow on it as best I can, and we'll see if I actually do it this time. My intent going into 2025 is I plan to play a lot of these video games. Eat those worms. That's one solution, I guess. My intent is to play hopefully we'll see if it happens or not. My goal in 2025 is to play more games than I've ever played before in a single year. Not in like a weird way where I'm like I'm just going to purposely try to like get a crazy high number of games. Like I'm going to play each game for like an hour. No, I just mean like I want to play more games than I ever have because it seems like there's going to be a fucking crazy amount of awesome games coming out. And you know, I just know what lies ahead, unfortunately, when it comes to a lot of these games. Hold on. Sorry about that. What I was just saying is I know what lies ahead. Unfortunately, for a lot of these games, when it comes to the potential conversations around them. And I want to attempt to get ahead of it because I feel like a lot of the conversations this year, like I want 2024 to be a learning experience on my channel where a lot of the conversations regarding games I played this year where, and again, I don't blame anybody else or anything else. I've been spending too much time blaming external factors. I've been allowing too many things to make their way into the conversation surrounding games that I played that are not about, like, that are not relevant to the game. Not everything. I'm not saying everything or every conversation I had. Certainly not. But some of them, absolutely. I fully believe that some conversations around some games were ruined because of me, because of the things that I wasn't thinking of, but I came across or somebody mentioned, and then suddenly I'm like, oh yeah, now I'm going to talk about that and focus on that. But it's like just to come to realize that that wasn't even that wasn't even an original thought from you, dude. Like that's not what you were thinking when you were playing the game. And I gotta like wrangle this before we go into 2025 because yeah, that's a great point, digital dude. You're right. You're right. It's like a fucking on to the next one. On to the next one before anybody even has a chance. Um and I'm caught up in that. Like I have been. I'm going with it. And I need to get out of that. Cause you're right. You're right. Nobody's even talking about that anymore. Because they're on to the next one. Okay, yeah, I saw that, and I'm actually super excited about that. I gotta be honest. I'm excited about that. I mean, as long as they don't do anything stupid, right? Where it's like, hey guys, we're here to tell you that religion sucks. Like, okay, you can if that's what you want to say, that's fine, but please say it in a more nuanced, interesting way. MRPD, you're saying 50 subs if Wolverine doesn't show in January State of Play. Clip it. All right, MRPD. You're a man of your word. I got you locked in now. All right. So listen, I do have to issue another apology. I'm going to end up losing more and more people that aren't going to come back because they probably keep coming back thinking, finally, this conversation's over, and then it happens again. And I feel bad because I would leave too. I get it. I didn't even put this topic in the title or the thumbnail. And I do apologize. I started out by saying I'm only going to talk about it for a couple minutes, and then it ends up taking up a fucking hour. So I'm sorry. At the end of the day, it hurts me the most, right? Um, but we do have other topics to go over and talk about. So worry not. Elden Ring is here to save us. Elden Ring eclipses the combined Dark Souls series sales. Prior to the release of Elden Ring, the Dark Souls series comprised of Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, and all of its associated DLC and subsequent re-releases and remasters. It amounted to an astounding 27 million units sold in total, as well as perhaps being the most influential game of the last decade. Elden Ring alone has now surpassed all of that with a boost from Shadow of the Erdtree, and that is precisely why the recently revealed, more compact Elden Ring Night Rain is coming in 2025. Nico Partners Director of Research and Insights Danielle Mod revealed on X, referring to Bandai Namco's confirmation that Elden Ring has sold over 28.6 million copies as of September 2024. This shows an increase of 3.6 million units over the numbers reported in June. So, god damn, Elden Ring is just an unstoppable monster. That's actually unbelievable to me. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. It is pretty unbelievable to me that Elden Ring has surpassed the combined sales of every Dark Souls game, including the re-releases, the remasters, and the packaged DLC releases. That's crazy, dude. So, just a little update there on Elden Ring's sales numbers. I think it's safe to say at some point it's probably going to reach 30 million. You bought a couple of copies of Elden Ring. Wow, okay. Yeah, dude. It's one of those games. It reminds me of GTA a little bit where it's like people have bought like 5 copies of GTA for some reason. I don't know why, but they just did. Let me see. They see the concept art from the portfolio of one of Naughty Dog's artists. It shows images that might give some ideas of the vibe of the game. I haven't seen this. No, no, I haven't seen it. Um. Oh, by the way, when it comes to oh wait, no, we hold on, we covered that. So I want to talk about this game for a little bit because this was a game that I saw there was a lot of excitement for, a lot of people really interested in. It's not a series that I have really any history with. I've known about the series, I've heard about it, I've seen people talk about it, but I never dabbled in it myself, that being the Mafia games. So there was a new Mafia game revealed, Mafia the Old Country. Coming from GameSpot, says Mafia the Old Country not only takes players back in time to the early 1900s, but also to a new place in Sicily. Game director Alex Cox recently talked about why the team at Hangar 13 chose that setting and time for a new Mafia game after the latest entry, or after the latest entries were set in later time periods of mob history. He said in an interview with Xbox that while the first 3 Mafia games explored different eras of the American Mafia, the team loved the idea of heading to Sicily and exploring the early years of this fearsome crime organization. For comparison, the original Mafia took place in the 1930s, with Mafia 2 picking up in the 1940s. Mafia 3, meanwhile, was set in the late 1960s. He went on to say that making the Old Country has been a refreshing departure for Hangar 13, as its staffers got to work on elements of the rugged Sicilian countryside as opposed to the busy cities of other Mafia games. Building the story has been a great experience for everyone at Hangar 13, first learning about Sicilian history and the origins of the Mafia, then adapting that into an exciting criminal adventure. In particular, though, Cox said that he's excited about elements of the time period, including horses, vintage vehicles, and knife duels. Taking place in the early 1900s means cars with hand crank engines will appear in the Old Country. We've never had the player riding on horseback before. Galloping across the Sicilian countrysides feels incredibly freeing and is unlike anything we've done in the past. While no entry in the Mafia series has been set completely in Sicily, the first mission in Mafia 2, titled The Old Country, takes players to Sicily in 1943. Developers from Hangar 13 visited Sicily to get a firsthand look and feel for the island and its culture. He went on to say that Hangar 13 has been working with a local Sicilian partner that gave the studio invaluable guidance. The team also consulted Sicilian history experts to help the developers nail down things like era appropriate bricks, music, and even swear words. Because the Old Country is set in the early 1900s, players will not have access to modern weapons. So the game aims to make combat feel more tactical and deliberate. We've leaned heavily into the tools of the trade of a Sicilian mafioso, from Lupara shotguns to stiletto blades. There's a real grit to these older, more traditional weapons. Finally, although the Old Country features a new main cast of characters and aims to appeal to newcomers of the series, he says that fans will get a kick out of how Mafia the Old Country connects to the rest of the franchise. So I don't know about you guys, but this game looks really good. I was actually really impressed with the trailer they showed. I know that didn't really show any gameplay, but what I like what they're saying here is they're saying that this is going to act as a like an entry point for newcomers of the series. Like they're trying to make it so that anybody's welcome. You don't really have to have history with the past games. That's great news for me because I don't have any history with the past games. And, I've heard really, really good things about them. I'm actually surprised I never played any of the Mafia games before. I feel like these are games that just based off of what I've seen, I would have liked. Um, so I'm on board with this. This game's coming in, I believe, summer 2025. And I like what I gotta say, the thing that really interests me is the fact that they're saying because of the time period, because they have to go back to like, o- you know, older weaponry and they still need to make the gameplay exciting, they're gonna have more tactical, deliberate gameplay. That definitely intrigues me. So it sounds like there might be more stealth involved, to a certain degree. And I like that. I'm very intrigued by Mafia: The Old Country. I just think at this point we're just kind of waiting to see some raw gameplay. There is another write up here regarding Mafia: The Old Country, though. It says following the leaked ad that revealed the launch window of Mafia: The Old Country ahead of the Game Awards, during the actual show, we actually got to see a full trailer and learn more about the game. By far, the most important tidbit is that unlike all of its predecessors, Mafia: The Old Country won't be an open world game. Hangar 13 describes it as a linear, narrative driven title. Mafia: The Old Country is a love letter to old style gritty mafia stories where players can uncover the origins of organized crime. Everyone at Hangar 13 is committed to creating the most authentic and intense story of the franchise, and we can't wait for players to experience the journey with Enzo. The press release from publisher 2K explains that it will be a focused package with a graphically stunning cinematic experience. Its story, set in a fictional Sicilian town of San Celeste, I guess I'm saying that correctly, is rooted in the brutal world of organized crime that aims to immerse players in dangerous combat systems with high stakes, grounded stealth, and gunplay mechanics. So they do mention stealth. Enzo is the game's main character. He survived a childhood of forced labor in Sicily's hellish sulfur mines. Eventually, through a twist of fate, he gets the opportunity to join Don Teresi's crime family and will do whatever it takes to make a better life for himself. By swearing an oath, Enzo has committed himself to the Teresi family. I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly, by the way. Their code of honor, with all the power and hardship that entails. He must never forget the simple truth: family requires sacrifice. To reach his next destination or make a hasty getaway, Enzo will need to gallop across cobbled streets and open fields on horseback, or speed along dirt roads in authentic turn of the century era cars. Um, they do say here we also learned that Mafia: The Old Country is powered by Epic's Unreal Engine 5, marking it another AAA studio that switches away from its proprietary engine. So again, things I didn't know. I did not know this was a linear game, and not open world. That actually is music to my ears. I feel like we get too many open world games and not enough games just flatly saying we're linear. So I'm loving that. Um, I'm interested in the fact that they're doing Unreal Engine 5 because it really does seem like more and more developers and studios are making the switch, you know? What's most interesting is that they're not coming from Unreal Engine 4. Apparently, they had a proprietary engine that they were using, and so this is all sounding really good. I like the premise of the story of the game. I feel like it's pretty unique. I feel like there are not many games that are set, especially AAA games that are set in the early 1900s. But this is yeah, dude. I would say this is one of the highlights that was revealed at the Game Awards, and I'm ready. I'm ready to see more. I should make it a priority to play Mafia 1 and 2. Yeah, I'll think about it, man. Because I'm not gonna lie, like this game really caught my attention. You grab the whole trilogy for PC. It's the only way I'll be able to play them more than 30 FPS. Were Mafia 1 and 2, were they linear? Yeah, I know. I think like Mafia 3 was open world, right? But if I recall with Mafia 3, people were not that impressed with it. Like it wasn't a bad game, but I think people were like, it fell short in a couple of areas. I don't think the open world. Listen, I didn't play it, so if you played Mafia 3, you tell me. But my read on it was the open world didn't seem to really. It's not something that seems like a very memorable open world. Like, I don't think a lot of people, like, when they think of open world games, the first thing they think of is Mafia 3, or the first 3 things they think of is Mafia 3. It was heavily, yeah, I recall that. You're saying the open world was heavily criticized. Hoy Tyler's saying, I tagged you in a thread. Apparently, it's from lead concept artist at Naughty Dog. It's a bunch of sci-fi stuff for the last 4 years. All right, I'll take a look at that in a minute. There was nothing to do in the open world. Yeah, see, that's what's interesting to me is I feel like for a period of time there were like developers that were like, we got to go open world, but they really were not prepared to do so, or they didn't really know what to do. Like, we have all this open space, but we don't really know how to fill it with anything meaningful. So that's why I think, like, if they just kind of came to the conclusion that, you know what, open world isn't our thing, we should really just stick to linear. I'm all in favor of that for sure. Oh, there's no fast travel either? Really? You can only drive from place to place? It's realistic, but man, yeah, that's kind of strange. I feel like it's like a no-brainer. You think it's a good thing? Did some people like it? Snake Eyes is saying, MBG, what kind of gaming chair is that? It's a I don't think there's a name for it. It's just a really big, comfortable chair. I don't think it's specifically. I don't think it's like a gaming chair, but it's like an office chair. The big old chair. There you go. This ain't real life. Driving everywhere was horrible. How big was the open world in Mafia 3? Well, let me ask you, in Mafia 1 and 2, did it have like open areas? Was it like wide linear, or was it just like, I mean, linear? The cars were too slow. Oh, wow, that's terrible. That actually does sound pretty annoying. Because, yeah, I mean, if you're going to be driving around in an open world and that's your only option, you would at least think you can go fast, right? You could get there fast if you're driving fast, but I guess they had like a cap. Open linear. Wide linear. I mean, it was 1920. No, dude, it was the 1960s. We're in Mafia 3. Well, it'll be really interesting to see the gameplay of Mafia the Old Country. I do think it looks really good, and I really like that trailer. I like everything about it so far. So I just got to see that gameplay. And I'll be honest, man, like, unless the gameplay looks terrible, which I don't think it will, I think this might end up being a day one buy for me. I'll be honest, the biggest thing that sold me is the fact that it's linear. You know, the fact, I mean, the trailer sold me, obviously, big time. But once I'm hearing like it's linear, single player, narrative, I'm like, okay, dude, that sounds awesome. We don't get enough of those games. I feel like you could get a fast car in Mafia 3. All right, I might have to look into this myself. All right. We do have one other topic to go over and talk about, and it does have to do with The Witcher 4. Now, I'm not like really into the Witcher games, truthfully. But there's a lot of excitement for Witcher 4, and I'm gonna try to do my best to cover it somewhat on the channel just for people interested in it. But I got a couple of articles here regarding Witcher 4. First, Witcher 4 is bringing back Geralt. It's confirmed. The Witcher 4 was officially announced at the Game Awards on Thursday, ending the night as of one of the event's biggest announcements by far, with an extensive cinematic reveal trailer. CD Projekt Red revealed that the next installment in the franchise will star Ciri as its new protagonist, but though we've known that Geralt wouldn't be the protagonist of the new Witcher titles, We've known that for a while now. He's still going to play a role. As it turns out, or sorry, it was like asking if he's still going to play a role. And they say, as it turns out, the voice actor let it slip earlier this year that he would be reprising his role as the old Witcher in the series' next installment, even if he wouldn't be returning as the protagonist this time. That has now been officially confirmed by CD Projekt Red in statements to IGN. Geralt will appear in the game, but we don't want to spoil his role precisely. You'll have to wait to learn more for now. This is what a spokesperson said. So, I mean, again, I know people are extremely passionate about The Witcher and about Geralt. Um, and so I do understand like when people were like, "Oh man, we're not playing as him." Well, people have been saying that that's been something that's been known for years now, but I don't know. I got to ask you guys, how do you feel knowing that he is going to be in the game, but we just don't know to what capacity yet? And we have another direct donation from, it looks like, Rich Rod here. And he says, Kojima's plots, all twists, no soul. I take offense to that. Neil's games drag like they lost control. Genius? Nah, just a hype patrol. Stay real, not theatrical, bro. God damn it, Rich Rod. Rich Rod's just going to start rapping again. You expected Ciri to be the lead after Witcher 3. I figured he'd also still be in the game. Chili, you're saying The Witcher 4 is definitely your most anticipated game at the moment. No, Shems. No. All right, so we got another write up here. So it says, speaking to IGN, CD Projekt developers commented on the choice, referring to the choice to make Ciri the main character. And so they say here, The Witcher, as a title, refers to both Geralt and Ciri and always has. I think she's arguably more important to the plot than Geralt himself is. They wouldn't say anything more about Geralt, although it seems unlikely he wouldn't appear in some capacity in The Witcher 4. Anyway, the game director added in the interview that um, Cirilla's, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Cirilla's, am I saying that incorrectly? Relatively new enrollment as a professional Witcher also means she still has to develop her own code for dealing with various situations. This in turn will increase the player's agency in the game. Since I can remember, oh wait, that okay, Cirilla, my bad, Cirilla, yeah, I figured it out. Carilla. Anyway, since I can remember, we've been talking about Ciri and how much she deserves her own journey. I love this grit in her. She's almost obsessed with the way she lives. There are some moments where you have to go with your heart instead of always going with the calculated calls. And this is what I love about Ciri. She's less calculating, following her heart, her passion, her gut feel. We want to let players try to define her. She's about to form her own codex on her own terms. The way she actually deals with the monsters, the way she deals with quests, the adventures, it's her in her own unique way. We want to put player agency at the center. We're giving more tools for players' disposal to be able to not only play and go with the consequences narratively, but also gameplay wise. We want to give players more opportunities to be able to feel that they define their experience. Um, and so, yeah, again, it's clear that the Witcher 4 is years away. Ciri from Cerealia. Yeah, you could. This is how you know. Like, I'm not a Witcher fan. This is how you know. But I don't know, man. This I will say that trailer, even though it was CG, it was pretty sick. Um, but yeah, Witcher 4, one of the bigger games coming. I mean, I'm assuming it's coming this generation. Is it coming this generation, or are we thinking that's actually a next gen game? At this point, I feel like it might be a next gen game. You know, It seems like it's really far out. I think the earliest 2027. Shems, you're unsubbing. Please don't. Do you think it's weird that Intergalactic didn't have a release date? We were talking about how Sony is holding off on announcing games until a year from release. I mean, it's a little bit surprising. Yeah, I was pretty convinced that anytime Sony would announce a new game, it would basically be uh it would be within a year, year and a half. Like we would get a year alongside it, you know? So I'm not sure. Witcher 4 just started production. Yeah, I think that was confirmed. So it's yeah, I'm thinking it's a next gen game, dude. I mean, I think it'll be cross gen, right? I don't know. Could it be possible we're looking at like the first PS6 game? I doubt it. I mean, it's probably going to be cross gen. All right, guys. I do think that's pretty much it, though. That's all I got. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm looking at this concept art that you tagged me in. Yeah, this looks interesting. Definitely got like a Star Wars vibe to it. If I had to guess, I think we are looking at some concept art. It says this isn't concept art from Intergalactic. Okay, so it's not directly for Intergalactic, but it you could tell like it's got that vibe for sure. All right, guys, that is going to wrap up today's stream. Now, I actually went a bit longer than I planned to, thanks to my ranting earlier. But yeah, this is gonna wrap it up. Before I head out, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching the stream and hanging out with me. Thank you to everybody who donated. Can't do it without your support. Very much appreciated. I also want to give a shout out to Devil Shooter. He does the timestamps for the streams. So, Devil Shooter, thank you so much. And yeah, guys, that does it. That about wraps it up. About like a half hour later, or I'm ending it a half hour later than I meant to. So, all right, guys, enjoy the rest of your day. I will catch you in the next one. So, until then, take care, everyone.